Welcome to the Aerospace Executive Podcast, featuring in-depth conversations with executives, leaders, influencers, and journalists in this dynamic, high-stakes industry. Hosted by Craig Picken, founder of North Star Group, the boutique executive search firm for the aerospace industry. You'll learn how top aerospace executives are developing their people, competing for talent, overcoming challenges, and adjusting to industry trends to drive growth and profits. And now, let's join your host, Craig Picken.
Hey, welcome back to the Aerospace Executive Podcast. As always, I am Craig Picken. That will never change. Hey, today I've got my good friend, producer, fellow podcaster, Matt Johnson, on with me. Matt runs a great business podcast as well called the UX Podcast. He's got a lot of diverse speakers, guests on, and talks about a lot of diverse subjects in the business arena, all about how to make business better. So be sure to look up that podcast as well, the UX Podcast. But Matt, how's it going?
It's going very well. Speaking of the podcast, we share a couple of guests. So guys, and they're both named Mark, strangely enough, Mark Amtower and Mark Green. So if you're in the aerospace industry and interested in those types of guys, I interviewed them and then we helped kind of facilitate getting onto your show, and they were fantastic, amazing guys. So people should go check out both of those conversations on the Aerospace Executive Podcast specifically. So I like those guys a lot. Yeah,
Mark was full of energy. You can see why he is top of his game in the government sales arena.
Yeah.
And Mark Amtower, Mark Green, just a phenomenal coach, helping those smaller, mid-cap businesses really get to that next level.
Yeah, which is part of what we're talking about. We're going to talk a little bit about mid-cap businesses and what it's like to go work for them, and making sure that whether it's a mid-cap business or not, kind of making sure that you don't get a bunch of B players. We don't want that. We want A plus players. So I want to go deep into this a little bit, but tell me a little bit about when somebody is thinking about, like, they're already working for a big established company, and they think about going to one of those mid-cap growing companies. It seems like there's lots of opportunity and they're doing some really cool things. But you also see that they often start out by asking the wrong question. So what does that mean?
Well, all right. So I work with mostly smaller and mid-size aviation and aerospace companies. They're interesting because look, these guys, these smaller and mid-size companies need A plus players, just like everybody else in the world needs A players. Mm-hmm. And since most of these companies are either private equity run or entrepreneur founded, some are small, publicly traded. They're like, hey, look, we have a strong need. What's it going to take? The first question they ask is, what's it going to take for us to get this person on board who can help us get to the next level? Mm-hmm. It's a totally different conversation because you've got, it's like, I need it, I want it, what's it going to cost me to get it? And then they start to figure out that cost-benefit analysis. Whereas bigger companies, you take your Boeings, your Lockheeds, your Collins Aerospace, et cetera, their HR teams have gone out and they've created these little pay bands. Mm-hmm. You're a director level. Because you're a director level inside this company, your pay will be between, let me use round numbers.
Right.
$200,000 and $225,000 with a 25% bonus potential. Maybe some equity, whatever. Mm-hmm. But, going into the conversation with a big company, they were talking to you about a director level. I know, my minimum is 200, my maximum is 225. It's a job that will pay me probably 265, 270, maybe a little bit of equity, but that's it. Mm-hmm. With a smaller company, they're asking a different question. And the different question is, hey, look, we want you. We need a new VP of engineering. Mm-hmm. What's it going to take for us to get you on board? Mm-hmm. The negotiation power has totally shifted. It's the old he who talks first loses type of deal.
Right. So if you've got the right person, if you've got the right candidate, that should be the way it goes. The company asks them basically, right, what's it going to take?
I've got a search. I've got a couple searches going for some smaller companies now, and it just so happens some of the executives I'm talking with are in the big companies.
Mhm.
And the first question they're asking is, how much does it pay? What's the bonus potential? What's the reload looking like? Time out. Let's shift the conversation.
Mhm.
What do you need? What would you need to make this move? Yeah. What would take you to the next level compensation wise?
Mhm.
Yeah. I've got equity involved. You're now an owner of the company. Understand that if you ask for a monstrous relocation package that's cash against the company would hurt your equity position.
Right.
You have to start thinking differently. When you're thinking mid-cap and small or companies, you have to think about the value play. It's what can I do for these guys to get them to the next level? But on the flip side, what am I looking for? Hey, look, if you want a $250,000 a year job, go to a big company. You got the little pay band. You're guaranteed it. Just show up to work, do well. Yeah. It's a totally different conversation, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy watching people squirm. And say, hey, look, what do you think you're worth?
Yeah.
And they're like,
that is an interesting question.
There's a challenge for people.
Yeah.
You're telling me you're so great. What do you think you're worth and why?
Yeah.
And now you get people thinking about, well, I can do this, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're thinking about your own personal value, not the value somebody else places on you because you get paid.
Yeah, well, and that's why I enjoy working in the wild, wild west of small and mid-cap companies, because I love those conversations, and I love the true ROI conversation. Like, what do we really bring, whether it's the company that I run or talking to other people about how they deal with their clients and things like that. Yeah, it's critical that you be able to tie it back to real ROI and understand what your value is. Yeah, there's a great book. I just reread a chunk of it, and it's an older book, so you probably are familiar with it. It's Richard Cook, their 80-20 guy, but he wrote a book called The 80-20 Individual, and he talked about just how the landscape is shifting and the power is shifting to the individual. Like, corporations are getting a little bit more wised up to the fact that individual people drive most of the value and most of the growth in their business, and it's not everyone; it's certain people, and sometimes they're in certain roles and positions, and that's great. But a lot of times it's something about that person. Better strategy, better execution, whatever it is, they're better at creating value. Once they realize that, the conversation starts to shift, and they get more power within organizations. And I would assume that once they start to, if they really zero in on it and figure out, okay, I'm the one that's bringing a ton of value here in this relationship, and I'm in a big company where I have a pay band that's made for, everyone, but I'm not everyone. So I want to go somewhere where I can capture the true value that I create, and that's a small and mid-cap company. But it is, you're right, it's a complete shift in perspective. You have to understand what value you're bringing, and you have to understand what that's worth. And the thing is, it's not worth the same thing to everyone. Like, it has to be the right situation, which is where I think somebody like you comes in. You need someone like that to look at this and say, okay, this is your skill set, and this is what you can do, and this is the value you bring. It's worth a ton of money over here. It's worth some money over here. Same skill set, same value creation, different situation, wildly different value. So I think that's one of the reasons why, like one of our good friends, Pasquale, always said that recruiting is the ultimate business. It's the ultimate, because you're pairing people, and you're literally showing you're pairing people in the right situation that creates the maximum value.
Well, that's that's the thing I look for. You're two great places for executives to learn. Look, just turn on Shark Tank. Turn on CNBC. Yeah, okay, it's getting a little boring now, but turn it on and turn on The Profit on CNBC. And the first two things all these guys say is, and ladies, Corcoran's on there too, they all say, know your numbers.
Yep.
Know your numbers. So, I always know the difference between a really good executive and a really bad one, because a really good executive, I go, all right, what did you do? You've been in this job for 5 years. What'd you do? And the person who really knows his numbers or her numbers says, I took $100 million business. In 3 years, I made it a $140 million business. I shifted X people around. I focused on finances. I got our payables down. I got our past dues way down. I got rid of some really crappy inventory that was holding us back. And I just refocused the business.
Yeah.
Versus the other person that has, you look at a resume and they say, attended 19 trade shows, responsible for marketing,
Right.
Yeah. Responsible for sales to, okay, what'd you do? How much? It all comes down to how much did you sell? What did you do? What did you accomplish? And it's all, look, it's business.
Yeah.
There's only two people that are valuable in business: those who can make a lot of money and those who can save companies a lot of money. Everybody else is overhead.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, it's not a fair world. Every director inside Boeing or every director inside a company is not the same. Yeah. The person that's going to make you $10 million, and maybe HR people need to talk when they're talking to their division leaders and business leaders, and they're saying, okay, you need a X executive that looks like this.
Mm-hmm.
The first question they should ask is, what's the goal you want to accomplish? And if this person accomplish it, what's the result they achieve?
Yep.
So let's just say, the guy says, look, or the executive says, if I hire a person, I want to grow my business, by $50 million. And a big portion of this $50 million requires digital marketing, which will hit 1 million people a year effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say that, okay? Mm-hmm. The person that comes up with that digital plan, who will guarantee to hit that number of people and will grow that $50 million, is probably worth a heck of a lot more than someone who can do it, but can only get you halfway there.
Yep. It's true.
So,
all right. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about just the mechanics of how this works. And there's one particular thing that often sabotages this project or this kind of process of bringing in like an A+ player. And it goes back to kind of the HR and maybe mid-cap and bigger companies not knowing when to step out. So what do you mean by that when you talk about like an internal recruiter stepping out?
I'll just tell you, a B- leader is someone who outsources the process.
Okay. So we're talking about the companies that are hiring.
Yes. Let's just take it a president or a vice president caliber person who is running a P&L in a business, has 3 or 4 critical needs, but is too focused on the urgent at the expense of the important. What does he or she do? They outsource it to HR and internal recruiting.
Right.
And they say, go find me this, call me when you got it, I'll get involved. Mm-hmm. And it never works. And the reason being is the people that those HR folks and the internal recruiting people want to talk to don't want to talk to HR people and internal recruiters.
Okay. Makes sense.
They want to know who they're working for.
Right.
They don't want to answer a bunch of dumbass 10,000 foot. Tell me about your biggest challenge. Mm-hmm. How well do you work in a team? Type questions that these generalists tend to ask. Yeah. They want to talk to the boss and they want to get down to the nitty gritty early because they want to go, what are your problems? What do you need? Are we a good fit for each other? How can I help you? If I can't help you, let's be friends. Let me refer you to somebody I can. Mm-hmm. Or if we're not going to get along, don't waste my time.
Yeah.
Answering 10,000 foot general stupid questions is nothing more than a waste of time for anybody at the executive level.
Okay. So as opposed to outsourcing it, what would you recommend? I mean, obviously there's getting guys like you involved, but you mentioned that there's a time for an internal HR or recruiter where they can add value and they can get involved, but then they need to step out at the right point. What's the right point for them to step out?
when the minute they deem a person the right fit. So look,
And we're talking about research-based, not conversation.
There's only three ways to effectively recruit people. Actually a couple. The best place for companies to recruit people is not via me. I'm a last resort. I'm an executive recruiter, and if I have to step in, it's a last resort. What companies should be doing is always evaluating their bench and looking internally first. What's our succession plan looking like? Do we have people that we can groom and step up?
Yeah.
Second thing is, you have to go outside the company. Internal referrals are the best. Joe's got a buddy, or Joe ran into a trade show, or he's pretty well connected inside the industry. Hey, who are 5 or 6 people we should go get for this position?
Yeah.
Those are terrific. The third thing is, look, industry reputation. Who are the 5 or 10 people that are getting in your knickers every day and selling against you? Why don't you just go offer them a better deal? Hey, look, if you come over to me, I'll give you, and you're successful.
Okay.
We'll better deal your current company. And then fourth, you got an executive recruiter who's well known and understands the industry, and is very niche focused. The problem with internal recruiters and HR people in general is they tend to be very general. They really don't understand what makes a good, executive for a very specific role that good. Or contrarily, hey, look, that person who may not look that good on paper may actually be fantastic. So that's. I think that the thing to step out is, hey, look, we're going to go get you 5 or 10 of the right people. Then we're going to boom. We're going to hand
calls on the calendar.
We're going to put it on Joe's desk, and then Joe is going to get involved.
Yeah.
And if Joe can't put stuff aside, get involved to hire people to meet his own recruiting needs, then he's a B minus player as an executive.
Okay.
God knows if it's my business. If it's my business.
Oh man. Yeah. Strong word. I love it.
I'm sorry. I may be a little harsh. I'm probably a little direct in that, but I'm like one to just call it. Maybe I'm just getting old. I call a spade.
Oh, I love it. No, it's fantastic. It's great.
Take responsibility for that which you own.
Right.
Some things you can outsource. Do not outsource the people, hiring of the people who are going to help you earn your bonus.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things we've talked about before, we were talking about it behind the scenes, and it seems to be one of your mantras, I guess, is executives want to talk to executives. High caliber people want to talk to other high caliber people. So if you're a high caliber person and you want to find somebody else, you can outsource the initial research, but when it comes time to having the conversation, don't let somebody lower level, try to have a conversation with them. Just go, let it be peer to peer, colleague to colleague, high caliber to high caliber.
Right.
Yeah.
And and that's and that's it. I hear so many times, the people in our company just aren't bringing me the right folks.
Right.
And you get involved. I'll get involved. But if you're asking me to do this, it's you and me, Matt. Mm-hmm. You and I are talking. You and I are working through this. You and I are coming to the final conclusion. Yeah. Everybody else is out of it. They can handle travel. They can handle admin stuff. But they're not. If I'm bringing new candidates, no, some junior HR person isn't going to interview them first. Mm-hmm. So I've actually fired several customers because all of a sudden, somebody out of the blue, you get a phone call one day and somebody out of the blue is going, "Hey, I'm Jenny Smith from internal recruiting, and you and I are going to be best friends." No, we're not.
Oh man,
not going to be friends at all.
Yeah, that's right. This is going to be a very short conversation for you.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Okay,
and those never go well.
They never go well. Yeah,
but it's better than wasting your time on a flawed process.
That's true. All right. Well, and of course, I love this conversation because to me, it's all about relationships, and that's where you find really great people is networking through relationships. And recruiting is very similar to the way that I meet all of my clients, mentors, friends, colleagues, peers. I love this world. I love the world of strategic relationships, strategic introductions. That's where I thrive. And it's nice to hear that that's, even in bigger companies, that's still the way that most A-plus talent is found. And it really does come down to like working your network of relationships, working your internal people, your internal staff and their relationships. And then maybe you get down to someone like you who has a bunch of relationships. Like that's why somebody hires you. It's not just because you have a process and an expertise. It's because of existing relationships. So that, to me, that's really fascinating, is that it all comes down to that.
Right. And look, I love Steve Jobs' thought process on it. And he's like, why we always strived for the A players. And they always were, he always worked a little harder to get the A players, because he said A players like working with A players.
Yeah.
And A players all working together, they will beat the hell out of each other, but they will elevate each other too. And it's something, the A's don't tolerate the B's, and the B's can't handle the A's.
Right.
But if you put a bunch of A's in a room together, the whole tide gets elevated very, very quickly. So
that's right.
Recruiting is a continual process.
All right.
You got a sales team of 10, you got number 10.
That's right. Go full Jack Welch on them. Fire the last guy and bring somebody new in. All right. So, Craig, what's the best way to reach out and connect and get the blog where you also write about these types of issues and all that fun stuff?
Let's see. Phone number 910-509-7129. Best way to get a hold of me is the phone. Email craig@northstaresg.com. And new website up. It's got all my podcasts. We call it Podcasts and Rants. Everybody can tell when I've been at Starbucks. But that is northstaresg.com.
Perfect. And then if you enjoy the episode, especially if you enjoyed a particular guest, like a couple of ones that we mentioned earlier, head on over to your Apple Podcasts app on your phone and make sure to leave a review for the show, 5-star, give a shout out to the guests that you really enjoyed. Thank them publicly for their time and their contribution. That goes a long way. We really, really appreciate when people do that. So, Craig, as always, I love doing these. These are a blast because we talk about fun things that I get to learn from, and hopefully the audience does too. So I appreciate your time as always.
Awesome. Thanks for being on, Matt. As always, enjoyed it.